will be delivered by Aditya Oberai, sir. He is a DevRel engineer at Appwrite and a student pursuing computer science engineering at Amity University, Noida. He has worked with various technologies such as .NET, Microsoft Azure, and has spent the last 2 years empowering tech communities as an MLH coach, Gold Microsoft Loan Student Ambassador, and a Google Developer Student Club lead. We are glad to have you with us, sir. In today's session, we will briefly look into what open source projects and Hacktoberfest are all about. Then, we proceed to understanding the basics of Microsoft Azure and how we can use it in an array of applications. I request all participants to not unmute and ask any doubt during the session, as it will interrupt the speaker. If you have any queries, you can either write in the chat box or ask at the end of the session. Over to you, Aditya sir.
Thanks a lot, Samrit. Hi, everyone. That was quite the introduction. Is it all right if I change one thing up, though? I would actually like people to be interactive throughout. I don't want this to be a session here that's just me talking and then we take a Q&A because, I think I am a student as well. I've been doing a lot of this stuff for the last couple of years. And I think the more we interact, it's going to kind of help folks a little more. So let's shake it up a little bit and let's stay interactive throughout this, all right?
Okay, sir. Great.
Awesome. And yeah, second thing, please, you don't need to say sir. Aditya is okay. Yeah, like I said, I'm just another student who's been struggling through CSE, who's still trying to figure out stuff, and has fortunately had a few good things happen along the way. And that's the fact that it's just been 2 years of a lot of effort. It wasn't that I started excelling or something. It's just I ended up doing a lot of things over time, and that's how things work out for all of us. So yeah, I'm just another student, and that's all you have to think about. Just someone who's been doing this stuff for the last couple of years. All right. So we're all gonna stay relaxed and chill throughout the session, and it's gonna be a comfortable little discussion. But I'm gonna share. But at the same time, I want you folks to keep interacting throughout. All right. Yeah. So first of all, I think we're going to start by talking a little about Hacktoberfest. I think that's the one thing where that's bringing all of us together right now. So I do want to understand how many of you have have participated in Hacktoberfest in the past. If you could all just mention in the chat, or if someone wants to come up and share, that would be really cool. And even if it's your first time, feel free to add that here. But it'd be great if you could share that, Okay, that's nice. See a couple of folks mentioning. Is there also anyone who's participated in the past? There's quite a few first timers. That's actually lovely to see, to be honest. It's always great to find folks who are trying this for the very first time. Because I remember the first time I started with open source, it was actually at Hacktoberfest. And it was back in 2018. Yeah, that's when I tried it for the first time, back in first year. I had 0 code contributions that year. It was all really documentation contributions. Some of them were also like, they weren't valid, but that's how I learned at that point. I had maintainers guide me on that front. So that's how I started off. And yeah, it's the reason I'm aware of open source. It's why I know the impact around it. And that's a fact, when we talk about Hacktoberfest, it is essentially the largest celebration of open source in this entire world. It's a month-long celebration. That's run by DigitalOcean. It's been happening for 8 years now. This is the 8th edition, and it's one of those few places that is open to every single individual, no matter how new or experienced you are in this world. That doesn't matter. It's something that's the space for everyone here, and I think the impact it creates really just shows from the sort of participation and activity it has received. Because just in the last year, in the 2020 edition, we actually had almost 170,000 people participate. There were over 116,000 repositories. These were from about 130, I think 135 countries. And the community was so active throughout this. Uh, there were there were actually over 700 events that were organized in this 1 month, all around the world, which is amazing to think about, because it's a big sign to how it creates starts for people to think about how to contribute and get started. um I think I got disconnected for a second. Electricity cut. Let me know if that's okay.
Yeah, now you're audible.
Okay. Yeah, so I was just talking about, I think the last was talking about the sort of participation Oktoberfest it had, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it does talk about the impact it makes, because that's the amount of people who are able to contribute and get a start, and that's the number of repositories that are able to get an impact. And I think being at Appwrite, it's even more immense for us to think about it, because we started as a Hacktoberfest project 2 years back. We launched at Hacktoberfest in 19, and that's how our project got a start. So it's definitely very interesting to think about how so many other projects get their first major contributors through an activity like this. People are able to access it. Maintainers benefit from these contributions, and yeah, you can actually see legitimate companies come out of this. So that's Hacktoberfest for you. And really, the tenets that Hacktoberfest tries to work on are tenets of open source. The three major values that they're trying to follow, I mean, they're on the website as well. But aside from that, I mean, I can definitely go ahead and mention those. And those are like, the first one is that everyone is welcome. There is space for everyone, regardless of what background you have, what skill sets you have. Oktoberfest is inclusive of the uniqueness of everyone. So whether you're someone who's been around for a while and contributing to some projects, or running some, or whether it's the first time you're coming across open source, that doesn't matter. Oktoberfest is going to take you in wholeheartedly. The second major point is, well, sure, quantity is a ton of fun, but quality is the key. When we talk about participating in Hacktoberfest, the idea is to lead to personal growth, professional opportunities, community building. Um, but all of this really, in its essence, starts with meaningful contributions to open source. And at the end of the day, the aim is to assist projects, to assist open source, to uplift open source. So it is necessary for us to contribute in a meaningful manner, rather than just rush and just throw all different types of contributions, random contributions in for the sake of it. That's not the idea. And yes, this is something that is being emphasized more on for the last couple of years as well. Because in the past, there have been instances where Hacktoberfest, while sure being a great place for contributors, wasn't always fair to maintainers. So there have been strong steps taken in this year to support maintainers, to ensure that quality remains a priority. Now, along with that, the third major value is that um, the short-term action here is intended for a long-term impact. In open source communities, we're standing on the shoulders of project maintainers and those who came before us. So many projects that have been around for a while are creating an amazing amount of value that sometimes we don't appreciate because we don't recognize it. Like, think about it. Git is something that is open source. Linux is something that is open source. You've got major programming languages on that front that are running through open source foundations. And aside from that, forget these little places of tech that we're playing around with today. A lot of the code for NASA's Mars mission last year was open source. So you think about it, open source can literally take you to another planet. That's the sort of impact we're talking about, and that's the idea. The actions you take now are intended and will have an impact far beyond this 1 month, far longer and wider than you can actually possibly imagine. So that's what you have to think of when when you're contributing. Aside from that, as I mentioned, the space for everyone to join in. You could be a contributor who's just trying to add your own contributions, whether you're writing code, whether you're helping with documentation, whether you're evangelizing, all of that. That is a form of contribution. Aside from that, maintainers are someone who can join in. Anyone who's running an open source project on GitHub or GitLab. In fact, this year GitLab is joining in for the very first time. So that's a valid way to join in. Your company could join in if any of you are with startups, running your own or just a part of one. It's a great time for to engage and encourage people to contribute to your organization, your company's repositories, organize events from your company, and engage with internal employees, of course. And yeah, fourth, last but not the least, is event organizers like you all. Who are trying to create events to bring people together for mentorship, for collaboration, for learning, so that you can help people get that start around open source. So it's definitely a very open system, and there's definitely a place for all of you. So go check that out. Make sure you join that. I'm also gonna throw in the link for Hacktoberfest if you haven't seen that. Aside from that, as Appwrite is sponsoring Hacktoberfest this year, we've got our own set of contributions, our issues, a lot of which are beginner friendly. So you could all check that out and, get your start there as well. So I'm going to share that link here too for Appwrite. And, you can check out our Hacktoberfest website. We've got some cool swags, all of that for participants. So why not? There's quite a lot of stuff that we have going, and you can definitely get started with our ecosystem and our community now. Now, along with that, I think another tech that we wanted to talk about today was cloud. How cloud helps us build, how cloud helps us develop better. So yeah, I'm gonna get to that. Before that, I just want to check, does any of you have any queries about Hacktoberfest? Just feel free to unmute and ask if you want to ask.
Hello.
Yeah. Hey.
I have been a bit late to the meeting. Can you just tell me what actually it is?
Sorry?
Can you just repeat what Hacktoberfest is?
Yeah, all right. I think the meeting's being recorded, so you can probably have a look at it later. Apart from that, I've shared the website there. It does have all the content around it.
Okay.
But in a single line, it's probably the single biggest celebration of open source in the world. That's run by DigitalOcean. So it's a month-long initiative, and yeah. Aside from that, the impact it makes, you can always find on the Hacktoberfest website as well. The first step you can take if you want to contribute to open source, based on your preferred technologies, just you can go to GitHub. They have a topic around Hacktoberfest. I'm not sure how it works on GitLab. I haven't worked there to be honest, but with GitHub you can actually just find the topic and get started from there. And you can find find a repo that you like, check out its contributing guide, check out open issues. The valid ones are gonna have, I believe, the Hacktoberfest tag. Even if not, if the repository is marked as Hacktoberfest, they should still be valid. So that's probably how you can get started. And along with that, join the communities to find people who are actively maintaining and building on those projects. If you want to join us, by the way, like for Appwrite, I can throw that link in, because our core team were all active on our Discord, so that's a fun community to be a part of. Along with that, I mean, we did a few sessions around getting started with your first pull request and all. So you can find those on the Appwrite YouTube channel as well. Yeah. So aside from that, I think we wanted to get started with cloud today. So quick question for all of you: how many of you have played around with cloud tech in the past? Any cloud platform? Whether it's for a project, whether it's for curriculum. How many of you have tried any cloud platform like? Okay, IBM Cloud. That's nice. Were you playing around with Watson by any chance?
Yeah, for my IoT project.
Makes sense. Watson's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
I haven't ventured AWS yet because that's like sort of paid and you need to give your credit card information and all that. So right now I'm going for the free one, like the IBM Cloud, but then I'll proceed to AWS because I've heard that's better.
AWS is cool. It's quite fast. They've got the range of services. You can check out AWS Educate for that if you want to do that. I think they do have some free stuff for learning at least.
Yeah, they have
Um,
some courses, right, for the certification
and yeah,
exam.
like they have hands-on stuff within those because like the labs actually provision resources for you on AWS for you to try out. So you can probably have a look at that to see how that works.
Right. Okay.
Anyone else has played around with cloud? Yeah, even if you haven't, that's totally okay. Not a worry. So as far as cloud computing goes, I think the first step would actually probably be to understand what cloud really is. I'm gonna spend a few minutes on that, and then we'll check out Azure because I'll just bring up my screen and we'll go through Azure and play around, see how projects get deployed, all of that. So I'll deploy a web app here live in a bit. All right.
Yeah.
So simply put, cloud computing is the delivery of computing services, including servers, storage, databases, networking, software analytics, intelligence, all of that over the internet to offer faster innovation, flexible resources, and economies of scale. So like with cloud services, you end up paying only for what you use, which really helps lower operating costs because you don't have to buy infrastructure to get started building. You can just get these services and then pay as you go. So it does help us get started a lot faster, save a lot of money. It allows us to actually get a global scale because if we are working on applications that are distributed across regions that have audiences from regions, you can actually allocate resources globally all around the world with any major public cloud because you're not purchasing your own infrastructure. You don't have to spend time setting that up or find people who can manage that infrastructure or patch it and all of that. So it removes the need for a lot of tasks. So there's a big productivity boost as well. And like as far as performance goes, these organizations, they're getting the the latest hardware for their data centers, for their network essentially. So this it's definitely beneficial for a lot of us who can't actually set up our own on-site data centers, and we're now in a world where we really don't need to in a lot of cases because of these platforms. And yeah, last but not the least, there are security benefits to using cloud because they offer quite the range of and set of policies, and technologies as well as controls that strengthen your security posture. So it's pretty beneficial for a lot of us. There are a few different types of cloud. You've got public clouds, private clouds, and then there's like hybrid. So like public clouds are owned and operated by like a third party, which are accessible to all of us. They're the ones they're just delivering their resources over the internet. And Azure is an example of a public cloud. So with all of this, all your hardware, software, infrastructure, it's all owned and managed by the cloud provider. You can access it with an account over your web browser. With a private cloud, though, this is something that is accessible only to a specific organization. So this can actually be physically located on your on-site at your company's data center. It could be locate. It could be, by a third party service provider, but it's one that is managed dedicatedly for your organization only. And yeah, for these, their services and infrastructure, they're all maintained over a private network instead of being accessible publicly. Hybrid clouds combine the two. They allow quite a lot more flexibility because they allow more movement of data and applications between private and public clouds. So, if there's some um, privacy critical information or data that you want to maintain that you need a private cloud for, that's a benefit you can have. And then if you want to use public cloud resources, hybrid clouds give you the advantage to play with best of both worlds. So that's there. As far as types of services go, there are probably a few terms I'm going to mention that you must have heard of. So I'll talk about these, and as once I'm done talking about these, we'll now then hop off. What am I saying? Hop on to, I'll hop onto my screen share to show you how Azure works. So yeah, the types of cloud services we have. This the first one I want to mention is infrastructure as a service. That's IaaS, if you've heard that. That's your bare bones. Basic category of services where you're essentially renting IT infrastructure. So, you rent servers, VMs meaning virtual machines, storage, uh, networks, operating systems from a provider. And it'll give you your basic infrastructure, and then, you can do whatever you want on top of that. Then we have platform as a service, which refers to services that supply an on-demand environment for building, testing, and managing, delivering software applications. This is the solution I work with personally at the most, being a developer, because PaaS solutions are designed to make it easier for developers to quickly create their web or mobile apps without worrying about setting up or managing the underlying infrastructure. So that's not something you get to touch in this. You get to work with your environment. So you'll hear of platforms that allow you to you deploy your solutions or build your solutions better. um, you'll see authentication management, you'll see a lot of that, CI/CD tools, all of that. You're gonna hear around this category. Software, before software as a service, sorry, the serverless as well. Serverless computing actually overlaps with PaaS, that focuses just on building app functionality without spending time on managing the servers and the infrastructure for that. The biggest benefit of serverless computing is that it allocates resources for you on the time of being called, because serverless applications are ones that are typically event driven. So if an event occurs, that code is triggered. So because you're paying only for that, the amount of time it's running, it does save a lot of cost. The only thing is you can't have very massive single functions that are running serverless. If it's smaller functions, it helps a lot more, because typically for because these are being run on demand, you could end up with scenarios like cold starts, all of that. So try to keep these ones a little lighter and smaller. But that being said, it's a really great tool if you have heavily decoupled and broken solutions that you want to fit along together as you go. It also helps a lot, if you're working with solutions that are maybe timer triggered, or there are certain events, like for example, if like you have if suppose you've had an action happen on your solution and you want to trigger something like SendGrid, for example, or yeah, smaller use cases that you're triggering essentially when certain events occur, anything like that. Serverless makes a lot of sense. Then yeah, SaaS, of course. Software as a service is actually a category of cloud that services that we all of us use in our daily, if in our general lives, if not daily. Because these are essentially software applications that are being delivered over the internet on demand and typically on a subscription basis. So like, with SaaS, your cloud provider is going to manage your application, your infrastructure, handle any maintenance. You don't get to touch any of that. You're just working with the software. A good example of this would be something like Google Docs or Google Slides or Office 365. Those are all SaaS products. So, you'd end up working with them. You'll use the software, but you're not actually playing around with the infra underneath it. So yeah, that's a bit about what cloud is. Now, I know we were talking about Azure. That's what we want to play around with. So let's really get into Azure as well. Before that, Aryan, do you have any queries?
No, sorry.
No worries. All right. Now, as I jump to Azure, I'm just gonna shift my screen here on the right side, like my meet here. So if you see me looking here, it's just because it's on my second display. I wanna work with Azure on my primary display here. So I'm just gonna keep that here, and Meet's gonna be on the side. So if you see me looking here, it just means I'm looking at Meet. In case any of you want Azure credits, Microsoft actually has an Azure for Students offer. So I'm sending in the link for that. I just realized there's a query around Hacktoberfest and contributing by Rahul. I'll get to that later on once we're through with this little demo. All right. Let me bring up my screen now. Yeah, I think it should be visible. So the link that I shared here in the chat is a link for Azure's students offer that you can try out. It gives free $100 of credits and tools to students. So you can enter your college ID and get access to that. I mean, there's quite a few services here, like SQL servers there. You've got some of their ML services, their Linux VMs. You've got app service instances, which I'm actually going to be demoing. Azure Functions, their serverless solution that I was talking about. Face API, that's one of their AI or out-of-the-box solutions for you to work with. So it lets you do face detection and comparisons and face identification without actually having to build an ML model. So they've got quite the range of offerings on that front that you can check out. Some of the security ones like Key Vault is also there. So there's quite a lot that this has. I already have an Azure subscription, so I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to sign in. I think it might just log me in. Ready? Yep, that's there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hop into my Azure portal. Yeah, Aryan, I was talking about cloud, right? So the public clouds I was talking about is what Azure is an example of. All right. So this is your basic Azure portal. What this lets you do is there's this lets you access any services Azure has that you can actually use for your work. So on the left side, you can probably going to zoom this in. On the left side, you can see quite your home. There's your dashboard option. You've got a few services mentioned here. You've got similarly a few more. These recent resources are ones that I have existing and I've worked with recently, so it shows those for me. And I believe you can actually modify this dashboard for your purpose as well. So Azure is just as I mentioned, as a public cloud, it's a cloud platform that you can get resources from. Of course, it's pay as you go, but I have some credits. Like I shared, there's a link that I shared earlier that lets you get a few credits, so you don't actually have to pay or money. You can leverage these credits to play around with Azure and learn. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna show you how you can create resources. As I clicked on that, you can also click here. Let me just hide this for now. You can see that we have a few categories and we have some popular products here. Beyond this, there's actually a much larger marketplace available within Azure as well that I will show you for a few cases, but like these are some popular products that people use. So as you can see, there's web app. If you heard me mentioning about Azure App Service, that's their solution for you to deploy full stack applications. We're actually going to do a demo of this. Aside from that, the SQL database, which is, well, a SQL database. Function apps, those are Azure functions. Serverless applications. Cosmos DB is a NoSQL solution, NoSQL database solution within Azure that has APIs for MongoDB and all. You have Kubernetes service, for your containerized applications. So there's, these are some popular products, but beyond that, you have a lot of variety. Like if I go into AI ML offerings, we've got some of their out of the box APIs for computer vision and face. You've got um, access for Azure's machine learning studio. There's some other partnered solutions as well, and there's quite the range of these. So like, if I take you to marketplace for a second, you're going to see that we've got a bot service here. You've got images by NVIDIA for AI that are optimized for PyTorch or for TensorFlow. You've got, if I press on SEMA, you're going to get quite a few of these. You've got Microsoft's own data science dedicated VMs using Ubuntu or Windows that they've developed so that you can quickly create those and get started working. You've got other automated ML related resources or RPA related resources that you can actually avail and allocate for yourself in here. And some of these are quite expensive. So like if you look at Blueware's package here, that's $25,000 a month. So you've got some of those, and then of course Azure's own services are also there, which won't cost just as much. And then other subscriptions that cost less, like Algolia's knowledge mining solution here is just their API is $1.3 a month. This one's 0.85. So you've got quite the range from free solutions, to really expensive ones for high enterprise cases. So we're just gonna hop off from the marketplace because we don't need to spend time around here. Aside from that, you've got your analytics related tools. So if you've heard of Power BI, business intelligence tools, you've got some of that here. Elastic Cloud is available for creation. You've got blockchain related solutions here, like Azure Blockchain Workbench. You've got Ethereum Studio. You've got the Syscoin. There's quite a few offerings. Compute will take you to some of your more traditional infrastructure options, like virtual machines. You've got servers available, like Ubuntu servers there. You've got Windows Server. You've got Red Hat. You've got all of these options there. If we go into developer tools, you're going to see something like DevOps Starter. Databases, another essential, because you're going to be like, if you're building, chances are you'll be working with a SQL database or another one of these relational ones like MySQL or Postgres. If you're playing around with NoSQL stuff, Cosmos DB allows you to create an API for MongoDB. They've got quite a lot happening here. You've got Redis Cache. So it's quite the vast range of offerings we have, and I could probably end up taking you through so many of these. It's actually going to be quite interesting, um, but I think it's probably the time we kind of figure out what we want to work with. So I've come down to web because we're going to be making a web app. That's what we're going to be doing. So as you can see, we've got a few different offerings here. You've got web apps, which is the app service that I was talking about. Function apps are serverless. Static web apps is another newer thing that we have that actually caters to solutions that are using single page frame, that are single page applications. Like, if you're using React, Vue, Angular, that sort of stuff. These also support having serverless functions within them directly. So it's quite a cool service. We're going to go to web apps. We're going to make, deploy a web app. I actually have one that I'd been playing around with earlier, but yeah, it's just not like it's probably around on my GitHub. So I'm just going to show you, because I have a few different solutions up and running for myself. So I can go to my repositories. There's going to be a few different offerings here. So I could probably deploy one of these for us right now. Let's see. Or you know what? I'll just create a demo app and push it to GitHub and show how that's gonna go. So because App Service actually has inbuilt CI/CD, so I'm just gonna say ISA-VIT. It's just the name I'm keeping for the session. I'm gonna keep it public, and I'm gonna create this repository. Gonna copy this here for me because I just want to create like a new solution just for testing here. All right. So let me go ahead. I'm gonna go open my Git bash. I'm gonna create a .NET application because I work with .NET. But that being said, you don't have to use just .NET. It's just something I'm doing, something I prefer. You can work with any platform of your preference, like Node, all of that. I think my screen is actually off. Let me just take that, stop presenting, and I'll bring off my entire screen once. Yeah, now my screen should be up. So yeah, if I just create a .NET web app here. Yeah, let's create that. I'm gonna create a web app for us here. Just gonna shift this 1 second. Yeah. I'm gonna just enter this folder. And you can see, that's just a basic web app that we have. Nothing to worry about too much. I'm gonna create a README here, just following GitHub's guidelines. I see it's I'm just gonna copy these. It's gonna be a little quicker that way. Oof, it's actually git add. Did I not add them? Yeah, this is something. I'm just pushing everything to Git for now. That's that's just a little basic sort of thing. I'm just pushing this to Git. I'm gonna name it initial commit. If you're confused at this point, please don't worry. That's just me working with Git, nothing more. I need to set my branch to push as main. Add the origin for this here. That's gonna be convenient. And yeah, this is gonna set my upstream branch as main, and I'm gonna push it to that. So after this, we're done playing with code. There's nothing we need to play around here. Okay, we can minimize this for now. So I've just set up a repository for testing here to deploy a web app. This is a basic template web app that we have. Now back to Azure. If I want to deploy this web app here, I can go ahead, I can create a resource. One little thing, if you see here, you're going to see MS Learn. That's because a lot of our resources actually have learn paths around them that Microsoft directly provides. So you can learn how to work with Azure App Service here directly if you want to. And this is actually a pretty handy resource if you want to learn about Azure or any other Microsoft tech. So I'm going to send this link here in the chat. All right. You can check it out there. That's the basic documentation that you can work with as well. So let me go ahead and create a web app for us now. Now, as you can see, we've got a few different options here. The first thing is your subscription. That's the subscription you have on your account. As with the Azure for Students offer, that's probably what you're going to see. I do have VS Enterprise for now, so that's my subscription that I see here. The next thing we have to create is a resource group, which is really just a collection of resources that share the same lifecycle, permissions, policies. I'm going to create a new one for this little activity we have. So I'm going to call it ISA-VIT. Okay. Next thing, we need to create a name for our web app. So for now, I'm just going to call it ISA-VIT test. You can name it anything else you want. As long as it's available, you can use it. And you can actually later on connect custom domains to all of that. In case you want to build, a web solution that creates a database along with that as well, which is handy actually if you want to work with some larger full stack apps. That's pretty cool. For now, it's not something I'm too worried about, so I'm not going to go for that. But it does give you the option to create a SQL MySQL database by default, so it's quite handy there. Now, we want to publish just a code repo. We're not working with a Docker container, so I'm not going to select that option. You can then go ahead and select your preferred runtime stack to deploy this web app. So, it shows .NET, we've got Java, Node, PHP, Python, Ruby, all of these. You can develop and, you can deploy any of these solutions. I've got .NET, so I'm going to just keep that for now. You can deploy, at the end of the day with App Service, it's basically keeping an, it's managing a VM underneath this, and then, it's just giving you an environment to work with. So you can select what OS you want to work with as well. I select Windows with .NET. That's where it works best. Although it is supported on Linux, so that's not a worry. But I do prefer working with Windows. So, you can go ahead, select that. If suppose you would have selected something like Node, it by default offers Linux. So it does give you those options based on the language, the runtime you're working with. And you can go ahead, select that. For regions, I recommend selecting the region closest to you, but as you can see, it has quite the range and variety. So that does speak about how accessible it is globally. We're going to keep Central India because I'm based out of Dehradun up here in Uttarakhand. So that's there. Aside from that, you probably want to create a new app service plan, which, determines the location, features, cost, all of that. So I'm going to create a pricing plan for myself right now. We'll keep that. For the SKU that you see here, this lets you select what sort of a system you want. It lets you decide the specs for that. So here you can see if there are production workloads that would work well, if your application's deployed. I'll show you the pricing for that. So it's just loading that for me right now based on my location and all. You similarly have dev workloads as well that are slightly smaller, made for testing, that sort of stuff. So as you can see, this one here, we've got, this one's what, less than 1,000 rupees. This one's about 3,000 rupees a month. You've got some that are relatively more expensive. With production workloads, they start off here with 4,500 and they go up till 25,000. Then you've got some additional ones as well. Like this one's for what costs 70,000 a month. So you can actually select these, and they've all got their own backups. They've got their own included features, hardware options, and you can leverage these for your purposes. For now, I'm just going to keep to a dev workload, and I'll keep this free one because I don't need too much for this test. But you can choose stuff based on your benefits. Like, if you select the B1 tier here, it includes the option for custom domains, manual scaling as well. It has dedicated compute resources for your thing. This one lets you access shared resources for a certain amount of time on Azure. So, and this is 1 GB memory just for your solution, your application you're deploying. It doesn't mean that the system here will be, that the entire OS or this hardware is going to have just 1 GB memory. It's just going to let you access 1 GB for your solution. That's what this means. So yeah, that's more than enough for us. We're just going to keep this one for now. Next thing you can set up is deployment. The reason I actually pushed my code to GitHub is because I can set up CI/CD directly through here, using GitHub Actions. So because in my case, I'd been logged in earlier, it has my GitHub account. If you're logging in the first time, it'll expect you to log in. You can also work without GitHub, but if you're using this, it's actually a pretty handy tool to have, because with this, you don't have to continuously deploy on your own manually. You just push to GitHub and it'll do that. And I'll show you how that happens. So I'm going to select my repository here based on my personal organization. As you can see, it loads up all the different repos I have. I'm going to go ahead and select the one we just created, and it lets you select the branch for deployment as well. As this is done, you can see the workflow configuration it makes, because as soon as this is created, you're going to see this workflow being added here. All right. So yeah, next up, you can set up monitoring. This lets you get insights to manage the performance of your application. It's a pretty handy tool to have. It gives a lot of information here. So I typically keep this enabled. That's it's application insights. It's an Azure feature. You can create tags that help you categorize resources better. It's totally optional. You don't need to worry about this. But sure, in larger solutions, it definitely helps categorize a lot better. So yeah, after that you can review and review the system you've just built to see whether what all you've selected in case you want to go back and change anything later. You can also download templates for automating this process. So yeah, let's go ahead. Let's create these resources for us. Just gonna take a sip of water in the middle. So yeah, if anyone has any queries, just let me know quickly. It's allocating resources for us here. You can actually check all the details of these individual operations as well, the duration, what type of component it is, the resource ID, all of that. It is quite informative that way. Let me see if... Yeah, so because that initial resource has been created, it actually just added a workflow for us, which is going to deploy this website here to App Service as we've started off. So it's already running the job because we've got the resources allocated for it. And you can see that here live in action. So it's gonna show you your build and deploy. That's the advantage CI/CD gives us. We just push here, it's gonna do the rest of the deployment work for us, and it does so using a YAML file here. And that's how we're getting these tasks and jobs. So that way, GitHub Actions are a pretty handy tool for managing your deployments, whether here, whether on another platform. It's pretty good. And once it's done deploying, it lets us know. So right now it's managing a deployment, and I can actually check that from the deployment center here as well. Okay. So you get all of this information here itself. It's in the process of building right now. And because it's selected .NET, it sets up the .NET deployment for us. Had you selected another language, it would have done that. But you can find all of this information here in the logs. So it shows the message, it shows in progress, which is pretty cool. Apart from that, this gives you a little overview of all that is there in your web app. It shows you your resource group, whether it's running or stopped, the subscription. It shows any tags that you might have kept, your URL for the website. So for now, if right now I just go ahead to this website, it's going to show a basic default app service website, I believe, until my app is deployed. And I think it's already in deployment. So yeah, see, that's the template website that actually pushed to my repo because it finished deployment. That's your .NET's template website. I'm gonna make a change there as well to show how nifty this tool is. But yeah, it gives all of that information to us. You can actually go to configuration if you add any. You don't know if you want to add any environment variables. You can do that here for your solutions, which is a good practice as a developer if you want to have any secret keys or APIs, that sort of stuff. So you can add environment variables here for your solution, add connection strings for your database. For authentication, there is inbuilt options here. You can add identity providers like Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Twitter. Application insights, as I mentioned earlier, is there. You've got some networking settings available in case you want to scale up, meaning increase the how good that individual system is, or scale out, add more resources, more systems, and maybe place it under a load balancer. You can do that here directly. So it's got quite a few things that you can play around with. You can also clone apps here if you want. So it's pretty it's a really cool tool that you can work with. Now, I talked about the CI/CD option here earlier quite a bit because it's one of the best tools you have as a developer. You don't need to deploy again and again once you have this set up. So if I go ahead, I'll just go to my index page once. That's where I want to make a little change for us. So As you can see on that website that I have deployed, you can see it says welcome, learn about building apps. I'm just gonna say hi ISA-VIT. I'm gonna change this paragraph here. Thanks a lot for joining the session. Now I'm just gonna say add the update index. I'm gonna commit this to main branch for now, just for quick, just to quicken the process. If you're contributing to another project, you'd make a pull request to contribute so that it can be reviewed later. For now, I'm just gonna commit directly to main. So now if I go back to my code, you will see that we have had the Azure function, it's just the GitHub action, sorry, not the function, GitHub action that's been triggered here. If I go to that tab, you will see that we have our second workflow run in progress. Similarly, if I go to deployment center and I go to logs right now, I will see that my update index message it's being deployed right now, and I can check the logs directly. It takes me to that same page that I was looking at. So right now it's rebuilding the solution for me. It's gonna deploy it, set up .NET Core once again. It's gonna build it, and then it's gonna deploy it. So the change that I made is going to be reflected on the page. So right now it's going through that process once again. It takes a little bit of time. That does happen. But yeah, it's heavily informative. As you can see, you've got comments here. It tells you that there are no warnings or errors in the build. It's gonna take you through the upload process. Now we're at the deployment. It's gonna show that it's found the build essentially. So it's downloading the artifact that it has from the build, and it's deploying to our Azure web app here. Once it's deployed, you can actually, it's going to give you the link as well for your web page. So if I just close this for a second here, it's completed the job pretty much. We've got the URL where it's deployed here. If I go back to actions and I just click, it's going to show me the link here as well, which is again, it's a really handy tool for us. So if I click on this, now when this web page loads, it's going to show that change that I had for us. So that's actually cool, right? I just made a change in my code. It was pushed to GitHub, and it automatically deploys that for us. If I refresh my log here right now, yeah, it shows that was successful. And it'll actually show the app logs for me as well. So yeah, that was the demo for us. It's a great tool to play around with, to work with, and yeah, I'm happy I could just give a little demo of Azure here. Yes, now I'd love to take any queries at this point. I see there's one from Dibangan, that's do Azure and AWS have same functionality, or are they explicitly different? Essentially, they're all trying to offer similar functionalities. They might have some differences in how they function, a few features here and there, but the fundamental concepts and yeah, those are going to be pretty much the same, at least with your fundamentals. And as far as connecting AWS and Azure go, you can leverage services from both in your solutions. That's not something that's an issue. And aside from that, I believe when it comes to I think for Azure does have Azure Arc now, which is a hybrid cloud solution, which is designed to help people solutions connect over different services in different places. So that does assist on that front. But yeah, you could end up using these services from both in your solutions if you want. That's something you can do. Any other queries we have?
I think Rahul asked some question about Hacktoberfest.
Oh, yeah. So it's a great question. Beginners usually doubt their skill sets, whether they're able to whether they're capable of contributing to projects or not. Hacktoberfest actually is one of the most beginner friendly places to get started with open source. You're not gonna find as welcoming initiatives that are run at widely distributed scale as Hacktoberfest. You're gonna find enough beginner friendly problems to solve. There are a lot of organizations that are opening, you know, their gates and just welcoming, people with open arms. So yeah, go. One of the easiest way to figure out whether you are working on a beginner friendly issue or not is once you find a repo that you're really interested in contributing. Among the issues, there is a label that organizations use called good first issues for people who are beginners. You there's actually a short um, on GitHub's official YouTube about this as well by Michelle Manners, who works there who's a pretty cool person. She's there as a community manager, I believe. You can check that out to see how you can find good, beginner issues. But this is actually a way to get started pretty comfortably. So yes, Hacktoberfest is very, 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 very beginner friendly. For static pages, sure, essentially if you're leveraging services like GitHub Pages as well, that is also technically cloud hosted. So somewhere or the other, that's what you're gonna be doing. That's it's a great way. I mean, it's far better than trying to get your own um, server and trying to set it up. Even if you're working with a platform like Vercel, Heroku, Netlify, all of these at their core are cloud solutions that you have. So yeah, cloud's a great place. I mean, it's one thing when you want to test these pages locally, it's another when you want them out in the world. Isn't that right? So yeah. How would the workflow be if I want to do code modifications and we don't have Azure? So code, um, code modifications with Azure. When we talk about CI/CD, you you can have CI/CD set up for a custom solution as well. It's not something I've worked on personally, but that YAML file is designed to be to be accessible on your platform regardless of where you're deploying. So you can work on custom deployments for infrastructure. I just haven't worked on that personally speaking. But I believe at this point, most major platforms, I'm not sure for infrastructure as a service, but at least for PaaS solutions, they all offer CI/CD. Whether it's their own custom solution, whether it is with GitHub Actions, like Vercel, I believe, uses with GitHub Actions as well. If you want to look into CI/CD with, um, you know, infrastructure solutions, there are a few offerings for that as well. I think I can look into that, but I believe tools like Jenkins and all you can explore for that purpose. Had GoDaddy noises. Why has anyone been trying GoDaddy static website builder or something? I haven't played around with those tools to be honest. But yeah, with platforms like whether it's GitHub Pages, all of these, it's pretty convenient to work. Do we have any other queries? Okay, yeah, for Jenkins and other you have other tools like these as well. You have quite a few CI/CD tools that are independent of your platform, like Travis CI. You've got Jenkins, you've got Circle CI. All of these, you can explore them, learn how you can use them, and see how they function with your server.
I think we don't have any further questions, I think. So we can conclude the session. Samrit?
Sure. Okay, just 1 second. I think on that query, I have a resource that I read about Jenkins earlier. I've just shared that in the chat. You can probably have a look and see if that works for you.
Thank you so much. We are honored that Mr. Aditya Oberai accepted our request to give the speaker session today. It was a very enlightening session, and we surely learned a lot of interesting things today. I personally loved how we actually deployed the web app right then and there and could see the live changes. We appreciate you taking out your time and joining us today to make our Hacktoberfest meetup a grand success.
Thanks a lot for having me. And yeah, totally forgot. I'm gonna share a page from my personal website. It has all my socials. I mostly stay active on Twitter and LinkedIn, but you can find them all there. So just hop over, check that out. That has all the different socials I have, and then you can connect with me on them. So yeah, the form up there actually reaches my email directly. So if you want to send an email, that's a place to go to. I think my email is there directly as well. So you can just leverage all of these. But yeah, thanks a lot for joining in. This was a ton of fun. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you all on similar stages and working with these tech in the future.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your
Okay.
time.
Bye bye.
Bye, sir.